Well, I had to give myself the night to digest possibly one of the greatest test matches I've ever watched live, and I'm still trying to find the words to give this game justice. Pure Australian domination for the first 2.5 days, except Sundar, Reddy and the Indian bowlers forgot to read the script, and within a day and a half, India is suddenly on top from an unwinnable position. Then of all people, Scott Bradman and Nathan Ponting had to clutch up, which caused one of the most exciting last days in cricket in a long time. Brilliant bowling from the Aussies, a few loose shots at crucial times, a fight back from a 23-year-old that had just dropped 3 catches and got yelled at by his captain the day before, and India nearly got over the line, and of course, some controversial decisions and a bunch of senior players out of form for the Twitter incels to argue over for the next 20 years. This is Test cricket at its peak. Before I jump into the final day of play, I do need to address the fight back from the Indians because they were out of this game. When I last uploaded, they were completely gone from this game. And I don't mean, oh, it's going to be tough to win from here gone. They were completely in the water at 6 for 191. They were literally 283 runs behind Australia with no recognised batsman in. And somehow we made it to the last 20 minutes of the last day. But this is where India annoys me. They seem to have the longest tail of any country ever. Literally since I was a kid, we have always struggled to bowl out India's tail. For years, it was Jadeja and Ashwin who always seem to grind out an extra 80 runs in innings just as you thought you're on top, just as you thought you were going to roll through them for a decent score. They pile on an extra 100-run partnership, and it's starting to look like Reddy and Sundar might be taking on the role of annoying batsmen that are impossible to get out. That innings from Reddy was world class, and even though I think Australia didn't bowl their best, I don't want to take anything away from Reddy's innings because that was so good from start to finish. Rock solid in defence. He literally was scoring 360 degrees on the field. I mean, even as an Australian fan, as wickets were running out and Siraj came in, watching his dad on the sideline, you just wanted him to get over the line and get 100. Ideally, he would have stepped on his stumps at 100 and not got those extra 14 runs, but it was great to see. It was such a good innings, and he's probably going to get moved up the order. He's going to be such a good player for India. The first impressions he's made were so good. Also, before I start my mandatory 2-minute glaze of Bumrah, if you are enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment below. It really does help out. But really, I think we can attribute a lot of India's comeback to one person, and as per normal, whenever I'm speaking about great performances from an Indian player, it's always Jaiswal Bumrah. He always gets his own section where I spend a few minutes trying to find the right adjectives to describe an absolute freak of a human, because once again, what do I say anymore? Even with Reddy and Sundar saving grace with the batting, Australia was so far ahead in this game. Once again, it's the same old story. Oh, Australia look comfortable. Oh, look, Jaiswal Bumrah is coming on to bowl. Oh, Australia is no longer comfortable and Jaiswal Bumrah is running through us like it's nothing. I mean, I actually thought the entire bowling lineup bowled pretty well in the second innings, and I thought, not to the tail, but for the top order, I thought Rohit was really aggressive and smart with his fields. His field to Constas was really good. I like that he had a third man and a fine leg to nullify those ramp shots, and then it made Constas play more traditional, which allowed Bumrah to kind of seam and chip away at him. So I thought that was really good. And I thought Siraj was actually really good from the other end, which he hasn't been really that much this series. And they were just so dominant. But really, once again, it was Bumrah showing up on a deck that a day ago, by end of day 3, the story was this pitch is flat, there is nothing in it. Reddy and Sundar were scoring for fun. We're destined for a draw. It wasn't really swinging, it wasn't really seaming. And then Bumrah comes on and makes it look like an absolute minefield, like a Mumbai minefield. It was seaming probably a ruler's length, left and right, that wobble seam that he gets going. And once again, Australia just have no clue. They either have to hit out or they have to survive. There's no logical approach to them. I mean, Constas did take him on, and I guess you could say he looked comfortable against him, but whether that's a sustainable approach, whether he's going to be able to go at Bumrah every single time and see those exact same results, especially now that they're putting the fine leg and third man there, it just seems like still after 4 tests, no Australian batsmen look comfortable against him whatsoever. But let's move on to the final day. And would you believe it? A game between India and Australia, the Border Gavaskar Trophy, and somehow a bloke from Trinidad has has stole the spotlight. I mean, I normally hate pointing out umpires because umpires have the hardest job in the world. They've got a second to react, a second to give a decision. It's a tough job, but my lord, Joel Wilson, you have had a day out. Unfortunately, I don't actually have any stats on hand to back this up, but it seems like every time I watch Joel Wilson, whether he be umpiring Australia or a complete different team, whether I'm a neutral fan or it's against Australia, but he's having DRS overturned probably 60% of time. I mean, in fairness, he's probably made to look bad because up the other end, Michael Goff has probably not got a decision wrong in about 3 years. He is honestly the best umpire in the world, in my opinion. But Joel Wilson, I mean, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. The Jaiswal LBW, look, the umpire's call looked very dubious. It looked like more than 50% of the ball was hitting the stumps, but it's umpire's call. It can go either way. So I can give you that. But the Jaiswal caught behind into the Akash Deep getting caught back-to-back was probably not your best look. I mean, I'm starting to think Joel Wilson may have some nudes of some higher-ups in the ICC because he is still getting plenty of gigs for about a 20% success rate, which is actually a perfect segue into Jaiswal's controversial dismissal. And really all I have to say on this dismissal is it really controversial? I mean, I know incels on Twitter are going to argue about this forever, but I am actually stunned at the amount of ex-players and pundits that are calling it a really bad decision and misuse of technology. And it just makes me feel sad for Indian fans that know it was out and have to listen to this dribble. It's the same as when Australia loses. And there are so many people complaining online. And there are glaring issues within that Indian team, same as like Australia in the past, that we could be putting our energy to focusing on rather than a controversial decision which really was out. I mean, at the end of the day, he hit it. Now, let's go back to the decision. Yes, there was no snicko, and normally if there is no snicko, it will go back to the on-field decision. So I think that's where the confusion is. Normally, if there is no snicko, it will go back to on-field decision and it is given out. But we can use the technology called our eyes. There was conclusive evidence, and we can see that with our eyes. In slow-mo, from the side-on angle, you can clearly see it flick the thumb of Jaiswal. Now, a lot of people are saying it hit the bat as well, but I'm not 100% confident in that. But one thing that is for certain is it flicked the glove on the way through. Now, it didn't come up on snicko. Conclusive evidence shows that it hits the gloves. To further back that up, from the main angle that they show behind the bowler's head, Cummins is bowling over the wicket to Jaiswal. He's angling it across from him. He bowls it at him, and at the point in contact, it then changes direction. So there's obviously been contact, and the only thing it's close to is the glove, and you can see it flick the glove. So in my eyes, there isn't any controversy. I think the problem is that because a lot of people saw there's nothing on snicko, they believe that you then automatically have to go back to the on-field decision, which is not out. But I think using logic and using common sense, you can see that it has flicked the glove and it has changed direction. Therefore, there is conclusive evidence to give that out, despite there not being snicko. Similar to Akash Deep's delivery that got him out, obviously the side-on was kind of blocked by square legs, so when the snicko came up, it was hard to tell if it was in line with the bat or not. But then if you just cut to another camera angle, you can see a cherry go onto the bat before it hitting the pad and going to the fielder. So, although technology is there to assist umpires, I still think we got to be using common sense and got to be using logic and be using all of our camera angles, and we can be overriding technology when it's not doing its job. And I think all cricket fans know deep down that Jaiswal incident was out. Like, everyone that really watches the game knows that hit his glove. I don't think there's actually too much in this issue. So now that we've moved on from all the rubbish, all the drama, we can actually assess India's batting and where they went wrong, and also assess Australia's outstanding bowling and fielding, because honestly, I think that's where the game was won. Yes, we are going to go into ROHIT, PANT, KOHLI, which I thought they all played pretty dumb shots given the situation. But apart from that, I don't think India actually batted that poorly. I think Australia were honestly bowling and fielding the best I've seen as a collective in years. Starting off, Stark was insanely accurate from the get-go, which is actually a rarity for him. He's always bowling the odd wicket ball, but he gives a lot he can be quite loose, but both him and Cummins were so tight from one end, and they built the pressure from the outset. I mean, even Khawaja was flying around the field taking screamers. I think the key for Australia yesterday was keeping themselves in the game at all times. So even after the first 16 overs, when they weren't getting wickets, they were building the pressure by not giving away any runs. They were tying the batsman down, which probably forced ROHIT into playing a dumb shot. And same goes for PANT when 3 wickets were down and they just kept building the pressure. They kind of were changing up the fields a little bit. I think their ability to just stay in the game and waiting for a mistake, so when the mistake did come, for example, KOHLI or PANT or ROHIT shot, they were able to capitalise, especially PANT. Once PANT lost that wicket, Australia were like vultures, ready to just feed on their prey. I mean, you could feel it within the stadiums. The Indian crowd was roaring throughout the day, then it got dim and the Australian crowd came up. And I think just when you have the 4 best bowlers in the world, 4 out of probably the best 7 bowlers in the world, all 3 quicks are really, really good, you can just build that pressure, and they were waiting for that mistake and just capitalise as soon as it came. And I feel bad for India's lower order, because when you're thrown into a situation like that, it is so hard to get out of it. I mean, we've seen it so many times before. Teams just collapse on a day 5 pitch. WTC on the line. There was so much pressure, so much momentum in Australia's favour that it's just one of those situations. If your senior players in your top order don't step up and take the brunt of it, you can't really ask much from the lower order. But just like I seem to carry on about Bumrah every single episode, it feels like it would be dishonest of me not to speak about the elephants in the room, or rather the elephants in India's batting lineup. And as mentioned before, 3 wickets, 3 senior players, 3 not the smartest shots given the situation in the game, and it's let Australia take advantage. We're talking, obviously, firstly, we'll talk about ROHIT. I mean, he just can't escape his bad form. He actually looked pretty good. I mean, he took up 16 overs, which I guess for his standards at the moment is quite good, but he looked quite confident leaving on the ball. He actually looked really good until he got out. He just hoiked it one across the line though. I think it was due to Australia building the pressure and not many runs being scored, but it was a ball on that off stump, pretty similar to his first innings actually. And he's just tried to flick one through mid-wicket when it's way outside off stump and got caught at gully. Now, you could argue that he shouldn't be playing that shot in this situation, and to be fair, you're probably right. But I think the thing is, an in-form ROHIT probably hits that 9 times out of 10. When he is seeing the ball well, he is hitting those shots for 4. He's playing those shots and he is hitting them. And I think it's a sign of how out of form that he can't even get his kind of bread and butter shots away. He can't get anything away at the moment. He can't find a spot in the opening, he can't find a spot at 6. He just looks so at sea at the moment. And the sad thing to see is it's now affecting KL Rahul's form. Rahul hasn't been able to hit a score since going to 3. Obviously, you can't put that all onto ROHIT, but it's almost like he's come into this side, he's not scoring himself, he hasn't captained that great, and he's also kind of disgruntled an order that did so well in the first test. So it's almost hard to see him stay in the team if he doesn't score runs next game or win next game. He might not even make it to next game. Then on to KOHLI, and he's just another case of what the hell is going on. Similar to the first innings, he actually looked really set. He was so keen on leaving that ball on the 5th stump line, which he should be because he's getting nicked out all the time. And again, he happy to leave it outside off stump, not looking to score too quickly, just wants to absorb some pressure and survive till lunch. And then an over out from lunch, he just hangs the bat at 1. I mean, well set up by Stark, he bowled a lot tight in at the body, but he just threw one wide and KOHLI took the bait again. It is the 5th time in a row, I'm pretty sure, he's been caught out in the slips. And it's just this situation where your legends, your senior players need to probably be smarter in that situation. You need to eat up a bit more time, and just even if you get a 4 there just before lunch, it's not doing much for you. You then have to go to a break and you got to reset anyway. There was no need for that, and it was just strange that why is he doing it? Why is he doing it? The final player is PANT, who's obviously playing kind of well below his average, well below his means, but this one's a bit harder to judge, I'll say. Like, obviously in hindsight, you can say this was an awful shot. Why are you, given the situation of the match, you're 3 down, you've kind of just got past T, why are you hoiking at it when all we can do is lose from here? And Again, you're probably right. Against a part-time bowler, given the situation, all it does was open the door for Australia to go on and do what they did. But I guess at the same time, you could look at it, he's won a lot of games for India. If he hits that for 6, they're only 3 out. If he hits that for 6 and gets going, maybe in his mind he thought they could have won it. Again, maybe the pressure of getting tied down a little bit, he just needed to get one off strike. Unfortunately, it is a little bit of a part of the parcel with PANT. And I mean, I think it's more on him, although like Rohit was saying it in the interview, it's a bit hard for Rohit to say it when he's playing awful himself, but I think he actually was right in a way that I think that's probably for PANT to take on himself. Like, you don't want to stifle a player that can go absolutely mad, but at the same time, you do want them to have the awareness to think, hang on, if I get out here, we don't have many batters left, there's a good chance we could just get rolled in an hour. It's a day 5 pitch. Nathan Lyon's beautiful on these pitches. No one's able to score quickly. Having that awareness to kind of assess his situation, say, maybe I don't play that shot at the moment, but maybe he was just thinking, if I hit this for 6 and we get going, it's already been tea. We've only got a couple hours left. We've got 6 wickets in the bank. I can have a real crack at winning this game. So I think PANT's a bit harder to judge, and it's also not really his job to be coming in that situation trying to win it every time as well. I think he comes in later in the day when they do have a bit of time. He can just go mad, and if he gets out, whatever. Overall, I think KOHLI and PANT will stay in the team. Rohit is getting very close to father time. If he doesn't score or win this next game, I honestly think he will be dropped, but we only got a couple days turnaround, so let's see then.